The rich are struggling with this pandemic. And while finances might not be their struggle, they're struggling with boredom because they can't travel. There are travel bans all over the world. So what are they gonna spend their money on as they've become wealthier during the pandemic and the poor have become poorer? Well, they've decided to spend their money on overvalued collectibles, even as most others in the country are struggling to pay rent. For instance, an executive over at Estee Lauder has found his new obsession with luxury watches. His name is John Dempsey, and he says this: "All I do is go through watch porn," which I think is a clunky sentence. Like, maybe be a little more careful in how you construct your sentences as an executive, but nonetheless, he says, "Woz, I'm selling watches, I'm buying watches, it's crazy. I have no reason right now to buy a watch. I'm at home all day at a computer. Time is staring me right in the face. What reason do I have to look at my wrist? But I want a tangible sign of something, so I'm looking at watches." And I'll give you examples on how much those watches cost, but what do you make of this?
I mean, at least watches, the luxury kinds anyway, are like a decent investment. Like if you go out and you buy a Rolex tomorrow, like in a year or 2 or 5 years, you'll be able to get pretty close to however much you paid for it. At least it's not something like the digital art crap. I mean, in my world, NBA Top Shop, which is just straight up, they're selling YouTube highlights to people. They're selling LeBron dunked on somebody. We're selling a YouTube video of that dunk and you get to claim that it's yours. That thing's not gonna be worth diddly in a few years. Trust me, this is a complete and utter scam and a sham. The digital art thing, I mean, I'm reminded of the Martin Shkreli guy buying the one Wu-Tang album that was in existence and basically holding it hostage, and that kind of stuff. Whatever, those one-offs are what they're gonna be. But yeah, rich people are gonna find ways to squander money, and yeah, not pay their fair share in taxes. Of course, this stuff all goes hand in hand, obviously.
Yes, and that's the issue I have with it, right? Like, they fight so hard to maintain this system that leads to inequality. They fight so hard for it. And so, like, if you're fighting that hard for something, it must be worth it, right? Like, what are you spending your money on? Is it significantly improved? You think that this Estee Lauder dude is happy? Like, if you need to buy these watches to feel good about yourself, there's something going on psychologically. Like, physical things, consumerism, like that stuff might on the surface, maybe temporarily, it makes you feel good, but it's not something that fulfills your life. It doesn't give you purpose. It doesn't make you feel better. And they're willing to destroy the entire country just to maintain this system of inequality so they can buy these nonsense things. And by the way, right now, because of the fact that the pandemic led some of these watchmakers in Switzerland to shut down, the value of some of these existing luxury watches increased in value, right? Because there's now a limited supply. But they're gonna open up again, guys. They're gonna open up again. And the New York Times is like, oh yeah, they're such smart investors. They really had their finger on the pulse. They know what they're doing. No, they're not smart investors. They're morons. They're spending their money on something that's going to decrease in value as soon as the watchmakers begin producing more of these stupid luxury watches. And Rolexes are ugly. I'm gonna say it. They're ugly, they're gaudy, they're just not. I don't get it. I don't get it. So we talked about this John Dempsey guy, loves to spend money on watches. And honestly, believe it or not, he's not the worst offender in this story. There are certainly people who are worse, including those who, I'm sorry, are willing to spend literally millions. They won't pay taxes. They'll fight to avoid paying taxes. They'll evade taxes in some cases, but they do it because they want to spend their money on really important things, like $1 million on Donald Trump digital art. In February, a digital artwork of Donald Trump face down in the grass, covered in words like loser, sold for $6.6 million. It's digital, it's not, you can't touch it. okay? A record for a non-fungible token or NFT, so called because there's no physical piece for the buyer to take possession of. Fittingly, the image, by the way, was paid for in Ethereum, a form of cryptocurrency that among millennials is almost as well known as Bitcoin. 2 weeks later, Christie's sold another NFT by Beeple, this time for $69 million. But thank God, I mean, what else could we do with that money, right? Like, it's good that this person takes advantage of the opportunities provided in this country, but doesn't pay back by just paying their fair share in taxes. Look, I don't know who the specific buyer is. Maybe I'm being unfair to them. But my point is, there is an intentional effort to maintain and even exacerbate a system that allows for people to become so fabulously wealthy that they're able to spend $69 million on garbage, while most Americans during this pandemic have struggled to pay rent, have struggled to pay their health bills because they've been laid off and lost their health insurance as a result of being laid off. Like, these are real problems that Americans have been facing. And the reason why we're never able to pass common sense legislation is because at the other nonsensical end of all of it are wealthy people who just don't want to provide the revenue through paying their fair share of taxes to fund the programs that we need. That's why I have an issue with this, right? And also, all of the luxury items, I've never really understood it. Like, I had a time in my life, where I got brainwashed. I was a teenager, high school. I'm like, yeah, of course. You're nothing if you don't have a Gucci bag. And then I realized no one cares about Gucci bags. Like, you buy that kind of stuff to try to impress other women, and I'm not interested in impressing other women. I'm interested in impressing my husband with a nice everything, and he doesn't care about my Gucci bag. So.
Well, I was just about to say, and at no point when you and Christian were consummating your marriage or relationship did he think to himself, I wonder how this would have been if she had a Burberry bag. At no point, not that anybody wears Burberry bags, honestly, if we're being honest, it's gotta be Hermes or YSL. Or a couple of other brands, but we're not gonna get into that right now. And but this is the thing. Rich people are gonna spend their money on ridiculous things. I think that's part of the reason you even become rich, is to do, really gaudy things like that. But I think I am heartened by something that you said earlier in the show, and no, not pollution penis, but when you talked about the sort of culture of not worshiping excess and being like, oh, that's so great. Like, it's calming down. Like, I can remember somebody like Jay-Z, who I'm a huge fan of, right? And every time you make another business move, it was like, oh, this guy is so great, it's so genius. And he would make songs about it like, isn't it great that I'm so rich and I'm black, and since you're black, you get to feel good about it? Isn't that just a great gift I just gave to you? It was such a cynical reading on the American capitalistic system, but I think, now people are sort of hip to it. He did his little freaking champagne deal with Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy company. And he sold a majority stake in Tidal, even though when it started, it was we're taking this back, it's ownership and blah, blah, blah. It was just another freaking startup venture to eventually sell and make money. And great, right? Like, Jay-Z is now really rich, and his children and his family will be rich for eons and eons, and that's nice for them. But I think even in hip hop, where a big part of the culture is, I'm better than you, I've got a better car, I've got a better house, I've had sex with better looking women, that's the culture. I think having sex with women still matters, but people aren't as enamored of the sort of the acquisition of goods and money and hoarding it and all of that as people used to be, which I think is pretty heartening. So, as disgusting as this New York Times story was, I think the culture at large is moving past that.
You probably don't remember this, but you said something to me once that I'll never forget, and it was probably the best compliment that anyone's ever. This is not hyperbole. I genuinely believe it was the best compliment that anyone's given to me, and I don't even know if you meant it as a compliment, but you said to me, you know, Anna, you're not a show off, and like I think what you meant there is I'm not a flashy person, and I don't really care about like I don't really dress in like name brand stuff. I like drive a used Honda Civic and I love it. Like I don't care about that stuff. But it's
we gotta get you a Tesla. I know Elon is evil, but we gotta get you a Tesla. And
I like my car. I love my car.
You would look so amazing in a Model 3. Come on.
I already look amazing. I don't need a Tesla to do that. I love my Honda Civic so much that when I got into a car accident that totaled my original Honda Civic in the beginning of 2020. I was like on the warpath to literally look for the exact same used Honda Civic. Like JR was like, did you just buy like a car that's exactly like the car you crashed? That's like years and years, like, yeah, it's old. I don't care. I love that car.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.